Taiwan dentist must repay mother for training fees. So evidently Taiwan's top court has ordered a man to pay his mother almost $1 million for raising him and funding his dentistry training. So the mother signed a contract with his son in 1997 when he was 20 years old. Now keep this in mind. And the contract stated that he would pay her 60%, which is pretty high, but 60% of his monthly income after qualifying. And so from there, he decided after several years of not paying, hey, I refuse this. I'm not going to go by the contract. She actually took him to court. So evidently the son had said, well, you know what? Look, this is the thing. I was a child when I signed this agreement. Mind you, he was 20 though, but just put that out there. But saying that, hey, I was younger back then and I really wanted to go to school. And at this point in time, I just didn't have my wits about me when I signed this agreement. And now for Taiwan, just as much as it is here, this situation is super out of the blue. Like, this is something that never happens and has not happened from Taiwan. Like, no situation from the government. Have they ever seen something similar to this?
Right. And under Taiwan's civil code, adult offspring do have the responsibility to provide for their elderly parents, but like, right, most parents don't just sue their kids if they fail to take care of them in old age.
Yeah, this is the first court case where this has actually come into play about a parent saying, hey, you're obligated to assist me when I'm older financially, and you even signed a contract directly with me. You haven't abided by it. I'm taking you to court.
Now, this woman did have a second son, an older, the eldest son, I should say. And she also had a similar agreement with him. And they actually did settle out of court for a smaller amount than what, she was suing him for. But he paid out. The younger one is like, nope.
Oh, yeah. He was just like, no, I'm not doing this. I mean, you're talking about basically a total of $1.7 million. And this is basically the portion of his earnings plus school fees plus interest from the time of starting school on up to graduating. And because of this, the court said, you know what? You signed an agreement. Everything's in paper. You should be supporting your older parent, or your parent, now that she's quite a bit older now and could use the assistance. So yes, you have to repay that. So now both sons are repaying some sort of amount, whether it's a full amount in the younger son's case or a slightly smaller amount. Still, it's hundreds of thousands to almost $1 million for the older son as well. So really the question is, out of this, do children have a financial responsibility to their parents?
That's a good question. And it's not a stupid question because we asked it.
Exactly.
And, is it a financial obligation? What about an emotional obligation at that point, right? Okay, so what if you had parents that maybe didn't help you get through school, but, is there this obligation to take care of them in their, when they become elderly and maybe can't take care of themselves? It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I know what the answer is. Because, and then we're not here to give yes and no answers, black and white. This is the right thing you should do, right? This is definitely a question that we should, that I'm sure all of us with parents or guardians or somebody who has, helped bring us into adulthood, and has done something significant for us, more so than maybe put food and, shelter on for us. But what are the obligations? Are there any obligations? My parents helped me through college, and then some. Some people, have cars, homes, loans for their new business, right? Trump. And, what is the obligation then, right? Do you have to repay that back? Is it like a bank loan? Whether financial or emotional, right?
Well, and I'll say, too, that from most of the business owners I've spoken with and worked with and what have you, almost everyone will say, Well, it's always important when you're first starting out your business, you know, you got to get a loan, you know, or find some way to get money, right? Legally, ideally. And one of the things they say is, well, you could always go to your family, but don't expect, for them, they should expect not to get paid back, because so many times friends and family who give out loans just don't get paid back. And at that point, it's like, well, yeah, like if they say, okay, don't have to worry about paying me back if that's the case, and that's fine, right? Like you have a verbal agreement there and there's understanding. But as soon as you say, well, yeah, no, I'll totally pay you back in 6 months and I'll put interest on it, and you don't pay it back, that just really makes you, in my eyes, kind of a shitty person. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, if you've agreed to it and everything, then it should be your responsibility to do so.
I mean, do you have it in writing?
And you shouldn't take it for granted either. I think that's the other thing. I think, unfortunately, some of us do take family and friends for granted a little bit more, because wonder if this individual, this gentleman, got the money from the government. And, or I shouldn't say the government. Well, yeah, like a government-run loan or something like that, that they'd have to pay back, or from a business. Would he then go to court and say, oh, well...
I signed it when I was very young. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, it's like, welcome to U.S. student debt, dude. Like, all of us at a very young age who went into college, who had to sign for loans, we all signed for them. So that's all in our name. We're required to pay them back. Otherwise, basically, it's pitchforks and torches onto our credit and everything else. And if you want to get a loan in the future, or car or anything like that, good luck. Try that, but it's probably not going to work for you. And so, you know, it makes it an interesting situation. I think in one respect, if you make an agreement, it is legally binding. And now, to tell you this too, I've spoken to many lawyers who said, well, agreements don't really mean anything. Right. They're like, well, it used to be back in the day, because your name was written on something, that it was about respect and it was about how your company was viewed. So many large companies now don't give a damn about how they're viewed. They're just like, whatever, we're this company, we're a name brand. People will still come to us. That most lawyers will say agreements really don't mean much of anything. And that's the sad point. And he said that only if the specific one I have in mind that I'm quoting here, but he said basically, this lawyer said that, you know, if you have the money to go to court, sure, it'll definitely help you. And most of the time, based on the agreement, if you're in the right, you'll win. But that's if you have the money. And that's the other thing, is that most people who are in these agreements don't have the money to even go to court because they're busy trying to pay off the loan that they have, among other things. And a lot of times they can't pay said loan because they don't make enough money in the first place. So if they don't make enough money to pay off the loan, how the hell are they going to make enough money to go to court? But then that goes back onto this. Well, the son was able to pay for, evidently, a lawyer and to go to court for this whole thing. And the money he invested in that, he could have actually went into paying back his mother. So there's like all these little bits and pieces where if you look at it from a black and white perspective, legally and from a business perspective, you could see that, okay, he's at fault. But there is this, of course, moral gray area too.
Right, and we don't know, obviously, all of the nuances or the details of the situation of, you know, was he truly coerced into signing this agreement? I mean, like, did he go to his mom and say, Mom, I want to be a dentist. It costs a fuck ton of money. What, like, help me. And she was like, yeah, that's cool. I'm a single mom raising 2 kids. Sure, let me put you through school. No biggie. But let's get something in writing first. Or was it that maybe she wanted him to go to school, you know, like, there, you know, and sort of said, okay, look, I'll pay for all your stuff if you go to the school, and then you can give me, you know, 60% of his income after that. And he was like, oh, okay, you know, like, and when I say, you know, again, one is more than the other, but it's like we don't know what the situation is. And it's, to me, I've always found it fascinating because, you know, you've got all these people having kids. And they want their kids to be something, right? Mm. And sometimes they project all of their regrets and everything in life onto their kids. And then they make them go through, you know, and make them become pageant beauties, or they make them become doctors, or, you know, they put all this pressure on them. And you're a kid, like, you don't know. It's hard to determine, you know, is it something that you really want to do, or is it something that your parents have wanted you to do for so long that, yeah, sure, yeah, this is what I want to do, right? And so they put all this pressure on their kids, and then when their kids do become the thing, then they're like, oh, I'm going to take all credit for that. I made you this way. You owe me X, Y, and Z. Like, there's also that. Then there are ungrateful children, right? They're out there too. And they did, you know, push for something that they wanted. You know, their parents maybe had to take a second, third, fourth job, or a loan or something. And then the parents are now burdened with this debt that their kids said, yeah, like, I'll help you pay that once I get to the thing. And now they are at the thing, and they're like, fuck you, right? So it's interesting because we don't know what the situation is, right? I mean, at the end of the day, right, getting into contracts with your family or friends, or really into any sort of money web with them, is tricky.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's hard to untangle the years of being together and figuring out, okay, where does the businessy part start, and where does the family stuff start, and, you know, what trying to untangle those emotions and putting name on them and trying to figure out how to best respond. Like, that's tough.
Well, and I think too that I don't know. I personally feel like I don't agree with the mother in the sense of creating this contract, unless she really knew her kids and knew these little bastards weren't going to pay me. But
ungrateful children. That's one. Is that one?
And we do have to say there's a bit more information in the sense of that she was a single mother. She went through a divorce, and she was able to put her kids through school from that, which makes you wonder too, what single mother do you know has $2 million to put their kids through school? I have no idea.
Oh, well, this is just the I thought this was the, let me make sure. It was 60. This is the 60% of his monthly income.
No,
for several years.
Right. I'm talking about the mother. The mother was divorced.
Right.
And agreed to pay. So it's like, what divorced mother do you know that has $2 million to put their kids through school?
But the $1 million is their income for years and years after that.
They're supposed to pay back. That means that she already paid for it, or she's currently paying for it.
But the training fees themselves may have not been $1 million. Like, it maybe.
But everything all together for their education is what I'm saying, though. So that's an interesting situation because we don't know then, well, what was her job? What was her career? You know, did this put her in major dire straits financially? Or was it something that she could have easily have taken on? And it just always seems interesting to put your child onto a contract. Like, especially if your government is already saying, hey, kids, you have to take care of your parents when they're older. Why would you create a contract suddenly to say, well, you for sure have to now? So it's a weird gray area. You know, for sure. It's very murky on the actual situation. And that's really what we have to go by in the legal system is, okay, well, it's not, we can't just generalize everything. We have to really look specifically as laser focused as possible on all of the individual factors within this one situation. Now, I think stepping out of that, though, from a perspective, Teddy actually makes a great point, too, is that from her experience, she says the state should care for the older ones because we all get old as a society matter, meaning that it's not just on the kids. Yes, you could probably feel if you have kids that maybe you're getting older because of the kids. It's a little bit taxing, you know, lots of energy being used up here. But overall, it's a natural way of being. And so, you know, she's saying that the government should step in as it is a society matter. Everyone is impacted by getting older. And caring for the elder ones is coming from the past where your pension was, let's see here, I'm trying to understand, was as many kids you can make, based on how many kids you could make. We don't live in societies anymore with a lot of kids living all together, big families living all together. It's a rare thing in our society. And again, yeah, there are families that have smaller numbers of kids. I would say it is based culturally, though, and then there are certain cultures that are about big families, actually. I think it's getting less and less overall, especially in countries like the U.S., potentially even Germany, and you could speak on that more, Teddy. But you know, potentially for other countries, that wasn't always so or group based, I guess, around the family unit. We seem to see that getting smaller and smaller per se. But there are still very many cultures, especially in like South America, where it is all about the family unit, and you will have multiple family members living together. And so, again, you know, how do you take care of this? You know, is it your responsibility to take care of the 10 people in your household as well?
Right. Well, and to speak to that too, right? Like, if there is, you know, if you've got 7 other siblings that can help you take care of your parents, that's one thing. If you're an only child and you're struggling to make ends meet, and now you got to take care of 2 people, potentially, if you've got both parents, that's tough, right? And I mean, you shouldn't be having kids just because, like, oh, well, I'm going to get old, they're going to take care of me. Like, come on. Or you shouldn't have children have that expectation either. Like when I'm going to have kids, if they want to become dentists, like, I'll try to help them out. I'm not going to do it expecting that they're going to, you know, give me 60% of their monthly income. I mean, if they want to, like, I'll take it, and that'd be awesome. But that's not what you do, right? Like, you shouldn't do that. And if your kids are ungrateful, well, you move on. I don't know. You get a cat.
Well, and it's tough in the sense of, and I guess you're going to hear this from us a lot, because there is no perfect answer. And
right.
What's great about this show, in a sense, with all the stories we face, there are a lot of different pathways. It's just highlighting all of them to realize which ones actually exist in order to have us as individuals make better decisions in the future based on what we're given. But it's up to us here to really try to break it down and look at least all the aspects, even if there is not a clear end or destination in sight. And I do feel like the other thing is, you know, did the child want to have that career? Did they want to go into that education, as you were mentioning, for example? Did they want to go down that pathway? Did they even want to go to that school where it cost that much money?
Right, that's a good point too.
Were there other alternatives that you know, child could have done, but, you know, hey, the mother wanted this way, or, you know, the expectation was you go to this specific school, like, you know, hey, so and so went to Harvard, so you got to go to Harvard, or whatever. Good luck with the bill. Good
luck with the bill. See you when you graduate. Bye.
Have fun, everyone. And in the chat today, Static Display says, get a cat. Best advice so far. It's true. But Bacon Prophet Guard does have a good point. Cats can also be pretty ungrateful.
I literally, as I said, get a cat and sat back. I had that exact same thought, Garrett. That, yes, actually, they're actually pretty ungrateful. So maybe get a dog instead. I don't know. Like,
that's true. You know, it's like, you know, you clean up after them, clean out their litter box, you give them food, everything else, and nothing. They just give you butt all day. You just try to pet them, like, here's my butt. Nope, don't want that.
But I hear snakes are also really amazing pets.
And I'm sure Faros and Linares can talk about that for hours on end. And actually, Linares has a great point, too, if you want to read that off to you.
My stand is that I did not ask to be brought into this world. It was their choice to have me. So while they're responsible for me, I am definitely not responsible for them, which is how I feel. You know, it's sort of like someone choosing your outfit for the day, and then they're upset when you don't want to wear it. It's like, well, you chose my outfit. I didn't choose it. What do you want from me?
Oh, yeah, and I think there's definitely balance, as Linares also put. However, as a loving daughter, I will have no problem taking care of my parents when they get older, as long as I'm financially stable. And that's a great point, too, because we don't know the financial information on the older son in this specific story. So, you know, even though he went to court and could afford that, you can make up your own assumptions. But again, as that's a very murky area, I don't want to say one way or the other. But yeah, it's like, is that expectation still there? If that means that I then go into debt to pay off the debt that you have, and then I'm homeless, living out of a van under a bridge. Sorry to quote Saturday Night Live here. But, you know, is that going to be my lifestyle then, where I can't put food on the table because I'm busy paying back my parents?
Right. And then if you want to, you know, create a family of your own, then, you know,
How do you do that?
right, we hear this about, I forget the term now that I'm trying to talk about it. I think it's like the sandwich generation, where you have to both take care of, let's say, an ailing elderly parent, but then also your children. And, you know, stereotypically speaking, that tends to be the woman, the daughter, who tends to have that burden on her, stereotypically speaking. But right, you're trying to build a family, you're trying to do something for your kids, you're trying to put your kids through dentist school, but now you gotta still pay back your parents for them taking care of you. It's like a kind of weird sort of vicious cycle.
It's like, hey, I paid for you, now you gotta pay me back, and now you can't move on with your life, even though my whole point in parenting you was so that you can move forward in life.
Exactly, and give you the tools so you can go and be your own person. And then, of course, you've got then those, you know, sandwich kids, as they call them, now probably are going to do the same thing for their kids, right? They're going to expect maybe that back in return as well. And so the cycle just perpetuates itself. And I don't know if that's good. I don't think so. I mean, it's sort of like doing a kindness to someone, right? You just do the kindness. You just be kind, period, end of story. You shouldn't expect anything back, because then you're going to face yourself with rejection feelings, right? You're going to have these expectations set up like, oh, why didn't that person do all this stuff for me? I've done all this stuff for them. It's like, you should just do it because you wanted to. As soon as you start expecting something back, and it's hard not to.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard not to. I'm not saying that, you know, that's easy. But as soon as you do start expecting things back for your kindness or for the nice things that you think that you're doing, it's not necessarily going to turn out well. Plus, people, you know, express their kindnesses and their nice things and their love in very different ways.
Right.
Some people express love by buying you things. Some people express love by giving you lots of hugs. Some people express love by cleaning up the house and, you know, opening the doors for you. So, you know, when you're doing a kindness to someone, they may not necessarily interpret that the same way that you do, right? Or maybe you're expecting them to return that in kind, but that's not how they express love. So it's a lot of things to unpack just from this one story.
Oh yeah, and I think too that to slowly wrap up here, but you know, it goes back to actually the discussion we just had on rejection. You know, I think just as we can look into the future and say, okay, well, something bad's going to happen, so I'll just put my head down and not do it. It's the same thing with expectations for positive things, right? Like we look at something, go, okay, well, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I should get, so I'm going to get it. And as soon as we don't, then we start getting all this negative energy. So it's been really, what do I want to say? It's a really interesting phenomenon how we can not only over elaborate on negative thoughts, but also on positive thoughts, not realizing that by this hyperinflation that we're doing to our thought processes, that then that's actually going to lead to a negative once again.